Hello, good afternoon. I see a lot of people are coming from the other room. Possibly we'll be having another 5-10 participants of this presentation in the next 5 to 10 minutes. We're going to speak about an interesting topic of regulatory expectations, about state as a risk manager, about compliance practices, about regulatory approaches to regulate the things that it's really hard and technically not always possible to predict and regulate. And just a second, technical is on.
I think it's on.
Yeah, so this one? No, no. My apologies. No. Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So not everything would be that a clear-cut subject for regulation. Decentralized finance or open finance is one of those, topics where most of the people, most of the professionals, most of the regulators would find difficult to regulate. Sometimes it's not even possible to regulate the things that go through continents in regulatory coverage. And this should be taken into account when we speak about the compliance and risk management practices for decentralized finance. So after a quick introduction, we go and discuss in more details those values at risks, the egress from the legal systems potentially that DeFi has here to offer, market abuse on financial markets, and possible approaches for regulation, as well as the issues of complexity, and an interesting topic of whether decentralized finance might constitute an elementary subsystem in finance, or is that beyond the complexity that we can see initially. So the first example of fintech technology, which is you can see here on the screen, it was invented in the 1850s. 50s, pen telegraph was invented by Giovanni Caselli, considered as the first example of fintech technology. Just to give you an idea, 25 words to transmit. It was over 1 minute, about 1.5 minutes to transmit 25 words. That's how it worked in the 19th century in 1850. Consequently, in 1960s, the things get a little bit better with an introduction of Quatron. You see here on the screen, this is one of the first data centers for trading in 1971, organized by NASDAQ, National Association of Securities Dealers Automated Quotations, NASDAQ. So it was absolutely revolutionary as it emphasized the transition from physical trades to electronic trades. So 1971 possibly was the first solution closely, at least reminding us of the current financial systems and how they work, including fintechs and techfins and regtechs. We will speak about these categories a little bit later. Come on in. We're waiting for you guys. Thanks. It works. Oh, great, it works. Since that time, since the first examples of fintech on the markets, the role of technologies and innovations has been constantly increasing in parallel to the computational power growth. This was a very revolutionary Moore's law introduced in 1965 by one of the co-founders of Intel company. And if you are interested in the topic, I do strongly recommend you to attend a session of our conference tomorrow discussing the limitations of application of the Moore's law. The session is taking place, I think, at about 2 o'clock. It's called Dancing with the Moore's Law. So the role of technologies is increasing. 1965, the Moore's Law is introduced. And currently, over the years, we're coming to a definitive framework which could be concluded and named as something easy to remember as an ABCD framework of technologies within the three categories of fintechs, techfins, and the regtechs. So A goes for artificial intelligence, B for blockchain, C for cloud, and D for data, plus machine learning and biometrics. This is basically, these technologies are the cross-cutting, enabling technologies used by most of techfin, fintech, or regtech companies. So what is fintech and what's the difference between fintech and techfin and regtech companies? Everywhere you could use one of those cross-cutting enabling, remember, A, B, C, D, right? Technologies. So fintech companies using technology to provide financial services and products. In other words, technologically enabling innovation, such as possibly Coinbase. It's one of the examples. Techfin companies, initially technology companies, expanding into the sector of finance, and regtech companies within this classification are those companies providing and using information technology in the context of regulatory monitoring, reporting, and performing other functions. We'll be speaking about the structure of monitors and some other approaches to regulation of DeFi a little bit later here and during this presentation. This is for the reading. So, DeFi and values at risk. Decentralized finance is generally aiming at elimination of traditional concepts, at elimination of traditional finance. Financial institutions, in the traditional sense of this word, should be ruled out as an institutional cause due to the wider adoption of decentralized finance. So possibly in the next 5 years to come, we will see DeFi at about 10% of the global cryptocurrency market. This would be the rate. Market cap in 2023, it was circa 4% of the global cryptocurrency market. Regulators, lawyers, philosophers, freedom of speech activists, all concerned about decentralized finance being able to facilitate egress from the legal system. So basically, there will be no laws applicable to the new systems of doing business on the market, and taking into account the main aim of DeFi, elimination of traditional financial institutions. This is quite alarming, isn't it? So that's why a lot of attention all over the world by regulators on both sides of the Atlantic is paid to regulation of decentralized finance. And also, the main difference here is that existing code-based rules, traditional fintechs, they should be regulated differently. And not all the time supervisors and regulators are really aware what would be the best way and how they could effectively regulate decentralized finance, because decentralized finance relies on lex cryptographica, which is absolutely different. And it's very difficult to regulate. If you speak about fintech, we all know about the regulatory arbitrage. Okay, I launched a company with a license in the offshore jurisdiction or somewhere in Gibraltar, and we provide services to the American residents living in Europe only, etc., etc. Different tactics are used to evade the application of laws and to achieve a license and to play with different regulatory regimes and rules, so-called regulatory arbitrage. And this is traditional fintech companies. And if we speak about decentralized finance, of course, the opportunities are enormous. So most of the authorities, most of the regulators, they would be thinking how we can, what would be the solutions and how we can achieve the regulatory equilibrium, trying to catch the decentralized finance technologies as a subject for regulation. And that's why the necessary risk assessment practices are usually implemented and developed as a help for regulators to develop a regulatory approach. So the main questions would be how to regulate decentralized finance to prevent market abuse, including insider trading and market manipulation. If you remember, maybe who knows who've been a victim of the Celsius clawback? Celsius, everybody knows the company Celsius, right? So insider trading and market manipulation, and how to protect those values at risk. So Lawrence Lessig considered that there are four technological advances, four values which are at risk due to technological advances: intellectual property, had to protect, had to monitor violations of trademarks, patents, and similar abusive practices on the market, privacy, free speech, and also sovereignty. Yesterday, one of my friends from the big banks was complaining that he couldn't get a free speaking slot at one of the side events of the conference, well, which is like reasonable to expect from a big bank, because usually they are paying when they are participating in this or another event. And I told him that, you know, free speech doesn't imply the right to speak for free. He was laughing his guts off. So free speech is still one of those values which is at risk due to technological advances in accordance to Lessig. And of course here we have to mention scale without mass, limits. So there is no clear identification for particular projects using decentralized technologies, and it's very difficult to impose tax on those companies. It's very difficult to impose an efficient tax policy on decentralized finance projects. It all affects the global taxonomy for decentralized finance, at the same time making us closer to the question, can a true state really exist if we couldn't tax some of the commercial activities, which in theory should be taxed, of course, because this is commercial activity, and if you're using a DeFi protocol or layer to earn money, you have to pay taxes. Otherwise, a state could not exist. So for DeFi and how to regulate DeFi generally is a question of if there should be one regulatory authority established, let's say, in Zurich or in Geneva, which would be entrusted with the tasks of regulating decentralized finance all over the globe. Technically, is it possible? What do you think? So, like in the same manner, we see the weather forecast. You know, so it's just this data is accumulated, and then you can watch it on CNN, on Swiss channels, Swiss TV channels, you know, whatever. So possibly we have one organization similar to the past proposal of the Global Tax Organization, and it monitors financial flows, spillovers, all the correlations and similar. So, and I was thinking how this cockpit of this financial regulator, global financial regulator, might look like. So I think this is a very realistic picture. So this is the cockpit of the global financial regulator, and it goes like, okay, I see another FTX scandal coming here. There is not enough liquidity. There's some turbulence here on the market, you know, in Hong Kong. So let's take some action and proceed. But this is unrealistic, of course. So this is more realistic. This is concept, and this is quite revolutionary. It's a new concept. It's called embedded supervision. So embedded supervision is basically, here there are two layers, two blockchains. This is non-financial ledger. This is financial industry ledger. All the information is getting accumulated together. So, and classification includes transaction level, internal risk modeling, and institution-to-institution ledger, bank-to-bank, consolidated exposures as well, and other risk-weighted bases. So after information after these ledgers, non-financial and financial, are read, the data access management provides regulators the possibility to access the data and to adopt this to another decision, regulatory intervention or similar. Possibly, another way to do it is to implement a smart contract for the regulators here to implement a solution for regulation of any particular transaction involving non-financial institution and financial institution via a smart contract. Also a very reasonable prospect. So this is much more realistic than establishing a global, Star Trek chair of regulator. Technically, regulation is about adopting one of the tools and methods. And here, most likely, the free methods, the free tools come to attention. The first one is using existing regulatory mechanisms, such as the recent SEC last month in March 2024. There was a SEC, Securities Exchange Commission inquiry regarding Ethereum proof of stake upgrade. So they considered reward tokens resembling investment contracts, and based on decision on 1946 and Hovering Core, they said, okay, this could be classified as securities. So this is an example of implementing an existing regulatory and legislative mechanism for something new and unknown. So it was an upgrade. It's very recent information, March 2024. Second possible approach is to implement selective adjustments, as demonstrated on the example of the Swiss Act on the adoption of federal law to developments in distributed electronic ledger technology. And the last option is to adopt new tools. Something new, like usually the last tool is aimed at controlling the network. So regulator, and not only American regulators, so regulators all over the world, they have different possibilities, and new tools ultimately, and in most cases, are aimed at controlling the exit or entrance points to the network, such as BitLicense. BitLicense is an example of controlling the entrance point. Without getting a license, you are not able to undertake particular set of activities, right? The same as with European Union MiCA regulation. The third part of this presentation describes DeFi as an elementary subsystem in finance. Should we agree or disagree with the elementary nature and character of DeFi? This is important as far as complex things imply different set of behavior. So if we consider DeFi, and DeFi is much more complex, replying this question, it's not an elementary subsystem in finance, we see that some particular initials attributed to a complex framework would be attributable to DeFi as well. So this would be possibility of coding mistakes, of course. Second would be the higher likelihood of unpredictable behavior on the network. So DeFi, decentralized finance, open finance, in finance is not an elementary subsystem. It looks like it's a complex framework, and if you would like to see more, I recommend reading More is Different by Anderson, Science 1972 on this topic, so we get to understand the concept of complexity much easier. This is very interesting to note that the fourth industrial revolution, embracing all these cross-cutting technologies, is the first industrial revolution in the history of mankind directly affecting the sector of finance. Never before, any previous industrial revolutions never affected the sector of finance. And as a result, the character of interactions with these new technologies affecting the sector of finance, as far as these are new, these are technologies never been used by the humankind before. We saw the progressive development from 1960s, from Quatron, right? And voluntarily and involuntarily usage of technologies it relates to under-assessing or working with risks. And that's why if the more society works with technologies, the more society likes the technologies, and the less regulators would be assessing those technologies as sinister, as bad risks. DeFi innovation possibly started with the product innovation as in most of the new things in our society, embraced by the previous industrial revolutions. So here, the first manufacturer of cars in America, Ford, they were more concerned about product innovation until a particular moment in time, and it's similar for all the innovative technologies, similar for all the sectors of the global economy. And then, after a particular level of product innovation is reached, so in terms of automobile industry, this would be the more competitive designs, more interesting elements of decor of a car and similar. Only after that time, the producers, and in our case, the developers and coders, would start to think about the process innovation, how we could make it more user-friendly, and how we could get a new layer protocol to be less energy consuming, to be more efficient. Basically, all these features and qualities related not to product innovation, but to the process innovation. So these are the different stages. You see them here. This is the fluid phase. Then there is transitional phase, and then there is specific phase. And the common framework we've been talking about on the previous slides, the ABCD, right? ABCD framework of enabling technologies, including blockchains and decentralized finance as cross-cutting enabling technologies such as blockchain, is currently approaching the dominant design stage. And the product design model will be most likely dictated by regulation, because in the history of mankind, all the innovations pass through these stages, and on every stage and on every sector, if this or another invention or sector would go to the mode of product design, dominant design stage with the product design, this would be dictated by regulation. So it was similar to all the sectors in the past. So there is nothing new, and we all remember, the dominant product design, for example, it's the QWERTY keyboard. This is one of the examples of the dominant product design. Also, the DOS operating system. These are dominant product design. They do little in the way of breakthrough, but they provide and encourage that so much sought standardization. So DeFi innovations most likely would be limited to dominant product design on the market. I'm just getting very quickly through the second half of the presentation. I don't want to keep you here. So regarding the risks, it's important to emphasize once again that the voluntary and involuntary activities, they're implying different approach to risks. So if I would tell you, you're going to receive your salary in Bitcoins tomorrow, starting from tomorrow, you would say, well, Bitcoin, well, salary, I want to do it when I want to do it, right? But if you would tell me that your salary would be in Bitcoins only starting from tomorrow, you would start thinking, okay, I want to do, maybe I would use a cold wallet. Well, maybe I don't need Bitcoin, I want ETH. Well, I don't know, I'm not sure. So depends on whether this is voluntary or involuntary activity. So different approaches to risks, right? And these concerns are the guiding principles for collective action by regulators. In particular, this is how the risk assessment is conducted. Basically, a lot of developers, a lot of coders, they've been asking me why the regulators adopting this decision or adopting that decision. So this is the matrix generally used by regulators all over the world from the 1960s to approach the risks. So there are two factors. First is that we need to understand to what extent it's unknown risk or known. So unknown risk would be microwave ovens, for example, or electric fields, depending on the year. And the second factor is to what extent it's a dreadful risk or not. So on the example of the vaccine risks, it's possible to classify the risks here. Okay, so we are wrapping up. Particular conclusions would include that upon certain conditions, and only upon certain conditions, such as suitability of technologies, when we would be able to receive a technical audit for technology, and privacy and compliance by design framework, when the privacy and compliance solutions would be embedded in our product from the beginning at the factory, not at some later stage upon the product launch, we would be able to speak about technologies being able to substitute traditional financial institutions, including banks. So this is basically, I think, the future of the regulatory paradigm for the DeFi. Thank you very much for your attention. Sorry, it was not so much time ahead, but thank you very much for your patience.
Right. Thank you very much, Pavel.
Oh, questions? I have questions.
I don't know why the microphones decided to go a bit quiet. There we are. Thank you very much, Pavel. And we have time for a very quick Q&A, if there's any questions from the audience, briefly.
One question.
None at all? I'm
no,
sure there's
one question.
There we go. Hello, sir. Go on. Go on, run on up. He's on the way. Elevator waiting music. It's coming.
Thanks. Are you not concerned that kind of the branding of DeFi in this context is not real DeFi? Like you spoke about FTX, you spoke about Celsius. They're not DeFi. They're gateways that are ultimately unlicensed banks. But if we have this regulatory framework, then real DeFi protocols like Aave, Morpho, Euler, Yearn, they're being branded under this regulatory framework when in reality they are real DeFi and do not need to be regulated. But the people that are creating the gateways, they're not DeFi, they should be called CDeFi. Do you not think this regulatory framework can impact real DeFi protocols?
Yeah, well, of course, the FTX is well, it's not even closer to a DeFi project, not even closer to a very popular currently business model of, combining centralized and decentralized exchanges, etc. The Celsius, yes, neither. But the framework for tech fiends, again, we're coming to a standpoint when whether you need to consider DeFi as a complex thing, as a complex field within the field of financial, services in general, implying that we have coding errors, that we have some features of unpredictability and unpredicted behavior. Because on the complex markets, on the complex structures, and the complex architecture, there is always a higher level degree of the mistakes to possibly to be made. And also the unpredictability, that behavior, that rate in a complex system is like 5 times, 3, 4, 5 times higher than in any other sector. And as we discussed, they are cross-cutting enabling technologies. They're cross-cutting. They are not precisely as in the similar manner as decentralized finance. They are not precisely fit into a category of tech fiend or fintech or regtech. So if we speak about FTX, then yes, it's a fintech company. If we speak about DeFi, it's a cross-cutting enabling technology which might be used by all the business models possible, facilitating the same one aim of eliminating traditional financial institutions. So I'm just to emphasize that it doesn't matter how we call it, and it doesn't matter the past experiences. Well, it matters, but not to that extent when we do the risk assessment. So when we assess the risks as a regulator based on the matrix of the risk assessments from the 1960s, we still see that, and you will see that all the technologies embraced by the fourth industrial revolution, including blockchains, they will be implying the same level of assessment because they would still constitute the same level of risk. So what you're saying when you're emphasizing that DeFi differs, well, I agree, differs to a better extent, but you have to take into account that the market share of DeFi is not that big, like currently about 4% of the whole crypto global turnover. So when it will be 50%, when it will be 60%, then you will be saying, well, okay, you remember that case of the, DeFi protocol, it went bankrupt, this one and that one, I'm sure, because it's like 5 times more predictability in terms of bankruptcies and malfunctions on the market. Yes?
I don't know. I really tend to disagree with you here. I think there is, I don't really want to be pictured, I think there is clear separation, and I think the assumption is unpredictable is completely false. DeFi is open source by default. You can see all of the protocols, how they function. You can validate this yourself. There's already regulatory bodies that's called the community that will check this code and say if this is bad or malicious. So I think there needs to be a clear distinction, because if there's not a distinction, these words and these presentations will impact the real DeFi community and not people that are Celsius and FTX. It's completely different companies.
Yeah, well,
FTX and Celsius are private. You cannot see the code base. DeFi, you can. It's very, very different.
Yeah, you're absolutely right in this as well. By the smart contracts and the system of decentralized communities, that provides a lot of clarity. But still, in 1970s, in 1980s, in 1990s, people were still thinking, well, we invented, this or another invention, and it won't affect the free speech. It won't affect.
Unfortunately, 2024,
and everybody was believing that, but
unfortunately,
it affects.
Unfortunately, to interrupt, the only thing that isn't open source is our time schedule, and free speech doesn't exist in this stage today, unfortunately, when we run over time.
Freedom of speech, but not the free speech.
All conversations and questions, though, of course, everyone will be outside and available, and there will be beers later on to continue the deeper conversations like these ones. But I'd like everyone to give Pavel, a thank you for being on the stage as well.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here, Pavel.